This is going to be day six-ish, maybe. I'm not
That's what I
100%
have in my head. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure about that. Anything that we should be reviewing before we look at samples?
Any idea? Are we getting close to a number where we're happy with the amount of samples, do you think? I
Hmm.
think we said at the start six is sort of maybe the average amount of sessions you do with somebody, but it can go longer and it can go shorter.
Yeah, I think we talked last time about doing it two or three more times,
Yeah.
and I think that's in the ballpark. I think we could say this is enough today, and we could say we should do a couple more after that. I think it depends on whether people are still getting value out of the hours that we spent together, and if they do, then we should do it again.
I'm good with two more, and I'll try and vary up the experiences a lot. These beeps were different experiences, trying not to just sit at my desk and work for the 4 or 5 hours of beeps to vary up the experiences. So I think maybe two more sessions, and I'll try vary the beeps as much as possible to get some more interesting samples.
I would say that all is in exactly the ballpark of what I had in mind. And
Sounds good.
all right, anything else we should be talking about before we launch into beep number one?
Our episode continues to be a success and rise every week.
I still
So
get an
that's also
I still get an email just about every day, maybe a couple of times a day, from people who would like to be a part of this.
right. Very cool. Yeah, yeah.
So, Gualtier, are you happy with the method that we're doing here, with me being the primary interviewer and you being the shortstop or whatever? And
Yes.
okay, then I'm ready. Number one.
So feeling positive, had a general sense of happiness, was talking to my friend, hearing the words rural Ireland that he was saying, and then I was imagining a green Irish countryside with a stone wall. So I had an image in my head of rural Ireland.
And is the feeling positive sort of, is that a directly apprehended thing, or are you describing that as sort of a general characteristic, and the more direct thing is feeling Ireland and the image in your head?
I think it was directly apprehended. It's very much a bodily feeling that I did have awareness of in that moment.
Okay.
You know,
And
maybe 30% or so, maybe a third.
so three things, a third, a third, a third.
Yeah, I would say roughly. Yeah, it was quite a faint image in my head of the countryside and the wall. Um, but yeah, roughly a third, a third, a third.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with the feeling positive. Tell me a bit more about that.
Difficult to put into words, but it's very much a bodily sensation. Maybe it's coming a little bit more from the stomach, from the gut, but it's just a sense of positivity, a sense of happiness, general positive, uplifting feeling.
Okay.
Hard to really explain it more than that, but
And is uplifting a physical sensation or a metaphorical description?
say metaphorical.
Okay. So what I'm gathering is that it's fair to say that directly present to me is a feeling of happiness, satisfaction, whatever, and that's bodily, gut-wise, but beyond that, really not much more to say.
Yeah, there's some sense of positive valence, but hard to characterize or really go more specific than that.
Okay. And I'm happy with that portion. Gualtieri, are you happy with that?
Uh, so that's a, is it fair to call that um, this is maybe more a question for Russ than for Evan. Would you classify this as a emotional experience that's also located in the body?
I would, yes.
Okay. That's reasonable.
I think feelings are fairly difficult to describe in general. This is a good example of why they're sort of hard to describe. But
Yeah.
I would say in my lexicon, this is a bodily feeling.
Okay, but bodily feeling can be just where my body is, or pain or heat. This is a affective kind of experience too, right?
Yes, but in my lexicon, I would not use feeling. I would not use the word feeling for what you just described. I would limit that to sensation. So I would distinguish between sensation and feeling and limit the way I apply words, I guess I would limit feeling to an affective the experience of emotion is what feeling is. And I agree that the word feeling is very difficult. It's one of the hardest words that there is because there are definitions all over the place. And
Yeah.
but if your point is there are plenty of times when Evan, I think, has had a sensation in his stomach as the result of some workout or other, and that we would call a bodily sensation, and that's a very different thing from this. This is
Yeah.
an emotional experience that seems to be in some way manifested experientially in his stomach gut region, and those are very different things. I totally agree with that,
Got it. Thank you.
and it is a challenge to keep the language separate because people use feelings for both of those things.
Got it. Thank you.
So
And that was a good distinction. I think it's centrally in the gut, but it was a sort of an all body feeling, not just the gut and stomach, but that might be the majority of it, or the epicenter of the valence, if it's possible to have such a thing.
okay, and then by all body, do you mean including my arms and my hands and my head and?
Not equally, but for sure.
Mhm.
There's a bit in the shoulder, definitely a bit in the legs, and yeah.
So there's some bodily valence which perfuses or suffuses or something my entire body, but maybe sort of more in my central region than in my extremity region.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
fair enough.
And probably not in the head very much, weirdly enough. It's kind of neck down, which is a bit strange, but I would say that that's accurate.
Okay. And then there are two other aspects. My friend is saying rural Ireland, and I'm seeing a rural Irish scene, I guess. And are
The
those
greatest scene in the world, rural countryside Ireland with a nice stone wall going through. The most beautiful image there is.
okay? And so is that more central, more salient to you than the friend saying rural Ireland? He's saying it, but I'm experiencing it, seeing it for myself.
The image in my head was quite faint. I wouldn't say it was very vivid, that I was seeing it in extraordinary detail. I would say half, but with the standard error bar on that
Okay,
of uncertainty, but
fair enough.
roughly equal.
Fair enough. So something can be salient to me without it being clear. Those are two more, sometimes at least, more or less separate dimensions. So I
Right.
don't. So I could be. I'm not saying that you are, but I could be engaged in a sort of a sketchy or not very clear Irish countryside with a wall, and yet I'm totally involved with that. Those are.
Right.
I'm not trying to talk you into that, but let's start with seeing what. So tell me exactly what you see.
So um, lots of green bushes, fields. Thing in the background, kind of in the foreground, there was a stone wall. Um, waist height, kind of stone wall, a bit damaged, and then blue sky.
And does this stone wall go side to side, or is it going this way, or doesn't that matter?
Yeah, yeah, front to front of the image, kind of from the bottom left corner, kind of upwards a little bit in the frame, but definitely in the front of the frame, the bottom half,
Okay. And the line
extending across.
And does it divide up something like, is there a road next to the wall or whatever, or is it just a wall that goes across the
I
green?
think I can't see the road, but it would be on the other side of that
Okay.
wall.
Okay. So I see a bucolic scene, I guess you would say, of green countryside with a wall going diagonally across it.
Bucolic? So is that a word you used?
Yeah,
I have
that's the
no
word
idea what that word is.
I think it means green countryside,
Ah, okay.
basically.
Cool. Nice word. I
It
didn't
is,
know that
yeah, it
existed.
is. It is a pretty good word. Bucolic. We can look it up. So, and then my friend is talking, and
Yeah.
am I hearing that other than it is causing me to create this scene?
Am I hearing that? I'm not sure.
So what is your experience of your friend talking? I guess is what I should have asked.
So I remember hearing the words rural Ireland in the moment of the beep. Those words were in my awareness, was auditory, hearing those words, and then the image in my mind.
And is there anything specific about the hearing of that other than that it triggers this seeing?
Don't think so. Don't think so.
Okay. Then I think I'm good.
Quick follow-up. The image, the bucolic image, sounds like it was fairly detailed. Um, does it include details such as seeing in the image individual stones in the wall or the boundary between stones?
I would say yes, loosely. Not not perfect high resolution, but yeah, I can definitely make out there was a bit of damage on the top, like there was a brick missing. I can definitely make out some of the divisions in the bricks without having, I would say, a perfectly fine detail of the whole picture. I just have
It's a,
some
it's
idea
a,
of
it's
some
a brick wall, not a stone wall.
stone wall. Sorry, like stone. I mean the divisions in the stone wall.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
So the question that you ask is the philosopher's question, and I think in the experiential world, even in the experiential world or the external world, it doesn't matter how many stones there are, whether you can see what you see, what you experience is a stone wall. That is the standard stone wall, but that does not necessarily mean that you see individual stones and spaces in between the stone. And that's true. That's
I
true
think
in
I
the real.
do.
That's true
Yeah,
in the real world as well. So if you see I think if you see a real world stone wall, it is not the case that your experience has somehow calculated how many stones there are and how much space there is between the stones. Even though in the real
right,
world there are and stones and so many centimeters in between the stones and whatever. But that does not mean
right.
that that's true in your experiential world.
Yeah. Well, to me, this is very interesting because I consider myself aphantasic, meaning unable to visualize vividly, you know, images in my head. And so to me, it borders on inconceivable that somebody would experience in their head divisions between imaginary stones in an image of a wall. So it's very fascinating, So I was already blown away by the degree of detail that you listed at the very beginning. And so I thought, oh, I wonder if you would say that he could also experience some of the
Yeah,
stones themselves in the wall. And yeah, so more power to
that's what
you.
I thought. That's what I thought you were getting at. I did a VVIQ out of curiosity with my sister. She's a Fantasia, perfect 16 on the VVIQ, black on black for every scene, and I actually landed on the hyper Fantasic side of the spectrum. I don't know if I fully identify with that though. I think I'm a little bit skeptical of the accuracy of the test when you're kind of in that middle-ish range, middle to high end. but yeah, seem to have a pretty decent visual imagination if that test is to be believed, and apparently it's pretty accurate and consistent. So
Yeah, and I'm not like total blank, but I'm near that. So
interesting.
yeah, like I'd say I have, very faint outlines of things that I can maybe not quite visualize, but I have like a quasi-visual feeling that there's something there, something like that.
Yeah,
But
interesting.
clearly, like we are on two different planets, you and I, when it comes to like visual imagination.
Right.
You and I, and
Fascinating.
many other people. I mean, many people are more like you, and some people are more like me. So yeah, like your sister. Yeah,
I think there's a wide range.
yeah, yeah. No, and I mean, I've been in a short public conversation with Eric Schwitzgable on this on Facebook, in which he took like the skeptical position that maybe we're all having the same experiences, but we all just describe them differently. And
I don't think that's possibly true.
no,
I
no
think
way.
I could
It's
make
an
that argument.
absurd conclusion. Like, surely it's an absurd conclusion to arrive to.
Right? I just don't think it's
My
true.
my eight, my 86 billion neurons are wired the same way as your 86 billion neurons. Seems unlikely.
No.
Yeah.
In order to believe that, we would have to say something like about what Evan just told us, is that he's not really seeing anything at the moment of this speech. Somehow he's just making that up. Or that Gualtiero is seeing something and he's just making it up. Equally.
Yeah, exactly,
unlikely.
exactly. That's really the only way that you could maintain something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On to number 2.
I was looking at my laptop, noticing the style and design of a slide, and then I had some sort of cognitive wondering about who the target audience is. This was a bit of a strange one. So I was sort of noticing, paying attention. What was in my awareness was the style and the design of what I was looking at. And in my head, I was wondering who the target audience is, thinking who the target audience is for this. It was a product slide.
And are those two aspects more or less equal, or one's one more prominent, the characteristic of
I
the
actually have
slide?
one more line. I just have one more line here that I forgot. I went down it. And I just had my hand on my beard, feeling the fingertips touch the hairs, just as an additional. Sorry, what was...
So of those now 3 possibles, are they equally present to you?
I would say that the most prominent thing was me wondering who the target audience is. And then the second was noticing the style and the design. And then the third was the hand on the beard, fingertips touching the hairs, like this.
Okay. Well, let's start with the wondering who the target is. How does that present itself to you?
It's a good question. It's not inner speech.
Are there words at all? Any words?
I would say it would. I would say no, that I didn't necessarily have the words who the target audience was in my head, but that was the function, the cognitive function, I guess.
Okay. And this is directly present to you.
Yeah.
As directly present to you as if you had said to yourself in inner speech, quote, I wonder who the target audience is, unquote. That present?
Yeah. Other than the only difference is I don't think there's words present in any meaningful way. I think who the target. Like I can't say for certain if those are the exact words I thought, or that was just the function or the idea, if that makes sense. It's a bit more abstract. I was abstractly thinking, who the target audience is rather than those exact words.
And would it be fair to say that this thinking could be expressed as who's this slide for? Or some other.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So that would be the difference is
Okay.
it seemed to be more abstract rather than the definite words. Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm good about that portion. And I would say that is pretty close to a textbook example of what I call unsymbolized thinking. We've had some conversations about what is and what isn't unsymbolized thinking. that's what is unsymbolized thinking, in the sense that it's pretty specific. It's about this particular thing and that particular audience and wondering about it. But it could be put into several very different words. Who's this for is quote, quote, who's this for, unquote, is very different from quote, I wonder what the target audience is, or who the target audience is, or whatever. So the meaning, the semantics is present to me without words and distinctly present to me. There's no question about what I'm wondering about here. I'm wondering who this is for.
Yes. Okay. So unsymbolized thinking is sort of like inner speech, but without specific words. It's more of a function that you're getting at. It's more of a cognitive function rather than specific words.
Well, yes and no. I would say it is sort of like inner speech. I could have asked, for example, does this thought unfold over time? We talked about that a time or two ago, I think. And my guess is that you would have answered that question, no, it doesn't unfold over time, but could have asked it.
I would say that that's right, that it didn't. But with error bars on all of these things, right? I don't.
Yeah.
Like it could have been speech. I just don't think it was.
But that's why I rankle a little bit when you say, well, this is just like inner speech. It's except without words. It's not just like inner speech. It doesn't really have any of the characteristics at all of inner speech, probably. Doesn't have any words, doesn't have any voice, doesn't have any rhythm, doesn't have any unfoldingness, whatever. All of those things are characteristic of inner speech. And yet it conveys specific semantics. And in that respect, it is like inner speech. It conveys some specific meaning. So if that's what you meant by this is just like inner speech, then the answer is yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I get you.
I would like so what I would say is that your experience, as I understood it, was not just like a gist of something. It's not like, well, I was looking at this and you could say, well, this could be for that audience. It could be that audience. I took you to be saying something much more specific than that you were at this moment wondering who this target audience was.
Yeah.
So it's not gisty. It is specific-y, but without words.
Interesting. So the specific element is definitionally important to unsymbolized thinking.
Yeah, and all these things are continuums. It's whatever, but most people, I would say most people, when I describe unsymbolized thinking, they think I'm talking about a gist, and so I am habitually at pains to say, no, I'm not talking about a gist. I'm talking about something that's specific. But there are gists, and there's a range of how gisty things are. I agree with that. But unsymbolized thinking can be very highly specific. I could be thinking, should I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And if I have peanut butter, should I have creamy peanut butter or crunchy peanut butter? I could be thinking that specific kind of a thought without any words at all. That's not a gist. That's absolutely specific. It seems to me.
Right. Yep.
So then I'm interested in the style and design of the slide. And how does that present itself?
Yeah, so I'm sort of focusing on, instead of looking at the individual elements, I'm looking at how everything is put together. So I'm not looking at the color specifically or the object specifically, but more just the branding and the style and the tone behind what I'm looking at. It's sort of hard to explain. It's a little abstract, but I think it is really involved or wrapped into this who the target audience is, rather than really noticing the elements as strictly in my sensory experience what my eyes are looking at. It's more analyzing the tone, the style of the whole thing. Does that make sense?
So is this more like how this whole thing impacts me or the impression it makes on me or something, rather than these particular words or those particular colors or this particular geometry?
First one, yeah.
I'm more interested in general impact or general tone or
The
general
holistic impression, yeah.
holistic impression is a good word. Okay. I'm happy with that. And then my hand is on my beard.
Yeah.
And is that a fact of the universe? The fact, as if somebody were there when the beep occurred, they would have noticed your hands on your beard? Or do you feel something in the
I
sensation sense?
I think it's 10 to 20% of my awareness, but really hard to know if that's ever, a post hoc, I was touching my beard, or was it actually my awareness? I think it was, a small amount there.
Okay. So my impression is that in previous samples, you've had somewhere where that was sort of central to where your beard
Yeah,
feeling was central. But this is not that.
yeah.
This is probably part of the overall thing, but not much.
Yeah, I'd say this beep was like 70 to 80% the what we said was unsymbolized thinking about who this target audience is. That was the vast majority, that cognitive function, that cognitive process.
Okay. And then about the without trying to be too specific, and I don't know is a good answer here, but is this a fingertip sensation or a chin sensation or a beard sensation?
Fingertips.
So
Fingertips.
so
In this case, yeah.
I'm feeling my beard do its thing to my fingertips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which might be my most common experience at the end of this thing, which is insanely boring. Of everything, if that's my biggest realization, that I touch my beard a lot. 8 weeks well spent.
Well, I would draw from that much of the important thing that people do is not necessarily directly apprehended. You know,
Yeah,
you can be processing a whole lot of stuff
right.
without it making its way
No,
into your experience.
right. Which is interesting in and of itself, for sure.
Yeah. Number three, or Gualtieri got any
So
questions about that? Number three.
Okay.
those feeling energized, a bit excited by a new idea. So again, talking to my friend, had like an excited body high, thinking that could work. And again, I think it was thinking, not inner speech. I don't think I necessarily had those words that could work in my head, but it was the idea that could work. And then a bodily excitement about that.
So I take it those are two separate things. Is that true, or two separate strands
Yeah,
anyway? There's a bodily energeticness and a thinking about.
yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
Equally, one more than the other experientially?
Yeah, maybe about 50-50.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, let's start with that would work. How does that present itself?
Without comparing samples and drawing, because I know you're going to give out to me for that. I think it was similar to before, that there was an idea in my head that could work, but those words weren't present. It wasn't inner speech. There wasn't an accent. There wasn't a temporal dimension. Like, it could equally have been, this could work. This could be successful. This is a good idea. All of those things are functionally correct. That was, again, cognitive function, that could work.
And by cognitive, you mean before the footlights of consciousness cognitive. I am somehow thinking this analytical cognitive that could work. That's a good idea. Let's do that kind of a deal.
Believe so, yes.
Okay. Then I would definitely put that into the unsymbolized thinking bucket and pretty similar to the previous beep. And then there's the feeling energized. How's that?
extremely hard to tell. But I guess the body, it was very bodily. Like it was definitely from the body. My body just felt light. It felt positive, and it was excited. Like I know all of those are just descriptive words. I don't. It's very hard to describe these bodily sensations with words. It never do them justice. But sort of excited, light, nimble. Do any of those help? I don't know.
Gualtiero?
Yeah,
How similar or different was that from the feeling in the first beat?
I
That
would say a similar feeling, but maybe dialed up.
more intense,
Yeah,
more positive, even more
maybe
positive?
a bit more. Maybe a bit more adrenaline. So like you still have that sort of latent positivity, latent happiness, but maybe there's a bit of an adrenaline injection of the sudden change of, oh, that's a good idea. This is where you need the heart rate monitor, to like attach the heart rate to that, because I think that actually it is. Then there might even that difference might even be physiological in that it just kind of felt like a bit more of an adrenaline pump body high. I am yeah.
And by bodily, are we talking about heart bodily, stomach bodily, hands bodily, head bodily?
Yeah, maybe this one again. It's sort of neck down, which is a bit strange, but maybe this one's a little bit more in the chest because I think do feel the heart a bit more. But again, definitely diffuse over the body.
Okay. And I think I'm good about that. And Walter, what I would say about the comparative question, I think the comparative question is a good one, but I would have preferred to have waited on it. I would have rather asked tell me about this one specifically, and then ask about the other one. Because when we did it in the order that we did, then when I got around to asking him about where it was in the bodily, then he was in the comparative mode rather than the description about this particular sample mode. The comparison I thought was important, but I would have rather gotten this one as good as I could do and then done the comparison rather than the other way around.
Very fair. Thank you.
Number 4.
It does feel useful on my side to understand your point on maybe doing the comparison after, but it sort of helps get that finely grained differentiation to compare them. I know you'll say maybe some of it gets distorted trying to compare experiences and you kind of elements get exchanged between them, but it feels like it's helpful for me to think of them both and try and get that differentiation between them. Helps me sort of develop a more finely tuned differentiation between those bodily experiences as well, I think.
And I totally agree with that. And so
Yeah.
when I was talking to Gualtier a minute ago, I was trying to say that's an important question, and it's an important question for the
Right.
reasons that you just described. I just would have rather,
Yeah, for sure.
I would rather have asked it later.
Yeah, makes sense. So before, so I was speaking to my friend out loud, and I spoke the words, "Are they wedded to that?" Feeling a general sense of curiosity behind the question, and then had my hand on my chin. But I didn't notice any hair or fingertip riffling. So the main is speaking out loud, are they wedded to that? And then the sense of curiosity behind the question.
And as far as your experience is concerned, is more about the speaking or more about the curiosity or equal? Or?
I think the speaking is almost all of it, I would say, because when it beeps and you're mid speaking, the speaking I think is definitely the vast dominant of the experience, at least in my case. I'm like fully in that. Almost all of my awareness, maybe 95% of my awareness is in that speaking.
You are the speaker, right? You said?
Yeah.
So what I would say about that is that it is often the case that people describe just like you did. I was speaking, and that was it. I was totally wrapped up in what I was saying. But there are also times, less common, but still fairly frequent, where people would say these words were coming out of me, but I wasn't really paying attention to them all. I was the speaker, and they're coming out of my mouth and whatever, but I was not attending to them. And I sometimes call those words like gestures. Sometimes when people speak, they move their hand around or something like that. And most of the time, those hand motions are invisible to them. They're doing it, and they're creating it, but they wouldn't say, "Oh, I was moving my hand up." And words can be just
Right.
like that. Words can come out of me just like hand gestures can come out of me. So I don't want us to assume that just because I'm speaking, I must be wrapped up in it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I don't also want to
Good
talk
point.
you out
But
of
I
it.
think yeah. No, I think I was. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's a good point.
Okay. And so does it make sense to say I was curiously speaking? Are they wedded to that? And that's my entire experience?
Yeah, I have feeling curious written down here, but I don't really know, was that sort of just implicit in the question, or was that a feeling that I was aware of? I'm not really sure. I guess
Okay.
it was sort of wrapped up into the question.
Okay.
Not really sure how to tease those apart, or you know.
I think that's very difficult and possibly impossible to tease those kinds of things apart.
Yeah.
Gualtier, questions about that?
Yeah. Did you feel that did you have a experience of intentionally speaking those words, or was it more like the words were flowing out of you and you were experiencing the words coming out of you, but not so much the intent to say that, if that makes sense?
It kind of does. I think I had intent behind it as much as I ever sort of feel like I have intent behind my speech. It didn't feel automatic, or like, obviously you don't like, intention doesn't work by like, okay, now I'm going to say something. You just, so like I'd say that I would say intention, but
Yeah.
hard to really know what's intention and what's flowing. Maybe it's always bits of both. Like, I guess there was a sense of I, if that helps. There was a sense of me saying it.
Yeah. And there was also a separate sense of looking for the answer to the question. That's kind of a separate
Yes,
experience of that's, you know, was that connected to the question directly, as in you you sensed that curiosity was part of the motivation for asking the question, or something like that, if that makes sense, or was it as if they were two distinct things happening just at the same around the same time, that you were asking the question and also you were looking for the answer, or curious about the
definitely
answer?
wrapped up. Definitely
Yeah.
wrapped up inside it. So much so
Yeah.
that I couldn't parse them apart at all. I think it was intrinsic in the question.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's fair to say that this was an intentional question, and and by contradistinction to some, I think in your sampling, Gualtier had a fair number of vocalizations that were not intentional, where you were talking to your dog or somebody, and
Right.
words just sort of came out.
That's right.
And this was not that. But that does not mean that there is an intentionality which is served by this questioning or something. I don't have an opinion about that one way or the
I'm
other.
curious I'm curious how you differentiate Gualtiero between your intentional speech and your non-intentional speech. Is that just a feeling? Is there a feature?
Well, so I think um, there are there are maybe there's a spectrum, but at the very least, there's clear cases where there's speech coming out of me more as a matter of habit or like some kind of automatic process. And it doesn't mean that I'm always saying the same thing. It could be, there's could be a creative element, but the creative element is sort of playful, semi-automatic, combining words. And they might have some kind of meaning behind them, but they just come out as they please. And then I don't have to think about it. I don't have an intention behind saying that or anything very specific that requires effort or requires um, me processing information for some specific purpose. Versus kind of on the opposite end, I say something with a specific intent because I want to convey something to somebody, and at least in some of those cases, I have I experience the intentionality of the act, which doesn't even have to be verbal. It could be something else, like I could just be grabbing a cup, I don't know, and I could be sometimes feeling that I'm doing this on purpose, as opposed to it's just happening, and I'm the one doing it. I'm the one doing it, but I didn't have to or at least I didn't experience intentionally doing it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Let me give an example that I think is sort of in the spirit of Gualtiero's samples. I don't think this is exactly a sample of his, but if let's say he's playing with his dog and he's throwing a tennis ball for the dog and he might say something like, get the ball. And the saying of get the ball comes out of him. He's saying it. There's nothing instructive about that. It's not like he's telling his dog to get the ball any more than he's throwing the ball. He's throwing the ball and he's throwing out these words, get the ball. And that's part of the sort of habitual act. He's playing with the dog and sometimes throwing, sometimes saying, sometimes doing some other stuff. That would be sort of a non-intentional saying.
Right.
And the other end of that spectrum would be as if he were saying to his dog, get the ball, by contrast to get the stick. I have been playing with both the ball and the stick, and now I'm saying, get the ball. That would be an intentional directive to the dog. That would be quite different from just get the ball as part of a.
I think that makes sense.
Claim.
It's useful to know that you think of them as on the same spectrum. I was wondering, is there some objective feature, like a temporal dimension, that you use to discern the two, and you can tell by that? But it is more of a spectrum, maybe on a spectrum of agency, maybe like what happens automatically, just you don't know awareness of it and then the other side of the spectrum is intent, awareness, and full agency of you're seeking something or you have a purpose towards your question, or
Right.
does that sound roughly correct?
Yeah, I would say there's even, maybe we could do the distinction between three options. One, things just come out of you. It could be words, but you're not really like having to think about it or having a specific goal in mind. Two, it's intentional. You have a certain goal, you thought about it, you chose to say those words as opposed to others. Three, you also have, the beep goes off and you can sense that intention in you as you were uttering the words. Like you had a sense, there's an experience of the intent of saying those words as you're saying them for a certain purpose because you chose to say that. So you could,
Right.
I think you could have all three options.
I agree with that. And people at the beach sometimes do report that third option. That's more at the rare end of the spectrum, but I
Yeah,
would
and
say,
I mean, I remember having cases like that when I say, yeah, no, I could sense that I meant to say that at that moment. And also
right,
I was saying it, I was saying it and I meant to say it. And those are sort of two aspects of the experience, not just one,
right.
you know.
Makes
I
sense.
I agree that
Makes
can happen.
sense. Yep. Yep. Makes sense.
On to number four, five, five, I guess it is.
Five. Yeah. Um. So so I was typing on a computer, typing the words I've already made. While I was typing, I was picturing a video thumbnail, which was related to those words that I was typing I've already made. And then I had some awareness of my fingertips hitting the keys.
And one of those more prominent than the other.
Um, I would say it was, no, I would probably not. I would say it was a low experience beep. Is that the right way to phrase it? Like there just wasn't a whole lot going on in this. Like the typing on the computer and then the picturing was quite faint and then there was some awareness. So all of the experiences were quite faint. But yeah, you could say probably the picturing was the most, but it wasn't a very vivid picture in this head.
Okay. Well, let's start with the picturing. So what did you see?
So it was the thumbnail of a video, so I could make out the person's face, um, Professor David Nutt, and then I could picture some colors down the left side of the rectangle. So I can make out red, yellow, and green, which are going down the left side of the frame. Those are the main two elements. So the person's face on the right side, and then the colors that are streaming down the left side.
And when you say you can make those out, are you conveying that those are not clear, or are you saying they're clear enough, but I don't have any specific shape to them or whatever?
They're clear enough. It just wasn't I wasn't consciously trying to visualize it. So it was just a bit faint in the background, sort of an automatic, involuntary visual image, I guess, while I was typing.
Okay.
Does that answer your
And
question?
yes, and is what's present to you the thumbnail or the face that's in the thumbnail primarily?
Probably the elements of the thumbnail rather than the thumbnail itself. So the face and the colors, I would say, would be more prominent than the idea. Like I know that it's a thumbnail, but it's not that I have awareness of it being a thumbnail. You're right that it's more the face and the colors that I have awareness
Okay.
of.
And this is seeing. I see this. Is that right? In my imagination.
Yeah, yeah.
And is there any difference in the seeing in my imagination as a distinct from the seeing on the computer screen right now? For example, you're seeing Waltiero and me on the computer screen.
Yeah, I think when I imagine visually, I usually have sort of a rectangular sort of 16 by 9 aspect ratio in my head. So it's kind of like having a flat screen TV with a black background. So it doesn't encompass, when I'm imagining, it doesn't encompass the entire possible space of it's always sort of a rectangle.
So
I'd love to know if
setting
that's common. I
so
don't think I noticed that before.
so setting aside the I always do that aspect about this particular beep, this particular thumbnail, is there is this thumbnail set into some 16 by 9-ish rectangle?
Yes, it's like I'm looking at a TV almost, and then the background is black, like or a TV or a frame, but it's just a rectangle in my imagination, and then sort of there's a discernible black background around it. So it's kind of sitting in a black space. If that makes sense.
Okay. And so does this thumbnail thing occupy a small portion or a large portion of the rectangle? Can't
It's the
tell.
whole it's the whole rectangle, but the rectangle might be it might be only sort of 50% of my visual imagination. Like there's a lot of black space around it.
So the rectangle is black, and there's black space around the rectangle, and
Yeah,
yet
so
there's
sorry. So the rectangle is holding the thumbnail. So like the rectangle is like a frame. That's what I mean. So I have an image in my head that's a rectangle, and then behind it is black. So the rectangle is the thumbnail that I'm imagining.
okay. So the thing that I see has the 16 by 9 wider than high aspect. Is that right? I'm seeing something that's shaped like this.
Yes,
Okay.
in a black space. Yeah,
And is the black space seen to be black, or is it just I'm not seeing it at all, and therefore I'm going to say it's black?
I think I see it as black. I think I know it like I think it has like the thumbnail has clear boundaries rather than occupying all of the visual field that I can imagine. And then I believe the background is black.
Okay. So I would say because the subjectification of this, I would say let's use this as a training opportunity. Well, so there's in the real world, in the real visual world, there is a visual perception, and we could calculate the angle or whatever and figure out what the visual field is. But that does not necessarily apply. Might apply. I'm saying it doesn't apply to the inner visual world. Let's not presume what I'm cautioning us to do is let's not presume that it does apply. So next
Yeah,
time we have a visual experience, if we got a visual experience, and I also experience a visual field against which this thing is projected, then
yeah,
let's talk about that. But it's also quite possible that there is no such thing as an inner visual field. And that does not mean that the thumbnail occupies everything that I could possibly see. The thumbnail is still sort of a self-defined thumbnail, even though I don't see anything beyond that. And
right.
and what I'm trying to do right now is to take a agnostic view of that, and let's just not presume that the inner
Yeah,
seeing or operates with the same mechanics as the external seeing, because I don't think it does.
right.
And for
Yeah,
that matter,
makes sense.
I actually don't think that external seeing has a visual field either. The eyeballs have a visual field, but that doesn't mean the experience of seeing has a visual field. That's a different conversation, I suppose. Sort of the same thing that we were talking about earlier on in the zebra and its stripes or whatever. And the zebra has a fixed number of stripes, but that doesn't mean that my experience of seeing the zebra has a fixed number of stripes.
Right. Makes sense.
All right. And then I'm typing, and
Yeah, so I'm type.
and does it seem like I'm typing this whole sentence of which I've already made as a piece of it, or does it seem like I'm typing a chunk I've already made?
So yeah, this was part of the sentence that it like the beep interrupted me writing the sentence. That's as far as I'd gotten. But
So I'm writing a sentence, and the beep chunkifies it. It's not like I have chunkified it and now I'm going to write this chunk. It is that
yeah,
I'm writing out the sentence, and then the beep happens while I'm doing it.
yeah,
And in order to
yeah,
describe that to these guys, I'm going to say, well, these are the words that I was typing.
yeah. That's right.
Okay. Then I'm good about that. Number 6.
So I was reading the name Hilke Plasman, for some reason with an exaggerated Swedish accent in my mind. I don't know why. I don't even know if that is a Swedish name.
And is that
And
the
that was
extent?
it.
That's the extent of your experience here? So
Yeah, this was definitely inner speech, Swedish accent over time, very exaggerated.
And can you give us a rendition of approximately what that would have been like?
I was gonna say I won't because I'm going to offend the country of
Okay.
Sweden, but it was something like Hilke Plossman.
Uh-huh. Okay. I got it.
It
So,
sounds better in my head. It sounds a lot more Swedish and in my head than whatever just came out there.
yeah. So, so what I was trying to get at was that there is a specific rendition in your experience at this particular moment. And this is you
Yeah,
speaking in your voice, but said quite different from your regular externally spoken voice.
it's a good question if it's in my voice or not. It's definitely in an exaggerated Swedish accent, so I don't know if it's necessarily my voice doing that accent or somebody else doing an exaggerated Swedish accent. I am. I don't actually know. I don't have ownership over that voice, if that makes sense. Like I
Okay.
can't claim it could have been necessarily someone else.
And do I feel myself to be speaking it, even if it's not in my, what seems like my own voice?
Yes, definitely.
So it's not like I'm hearing a recording of somebody saying that. It's that I am producing these words. I'm the speaker,
Yeah.
but I'm not necessarily speaking it in my own voice.
Like it's not in my own voice insofar as it's an exaggerated Swedish accent, right? So I am, yeah, hard to know if it's in my voice or if it's a caricatured Swedish man.
Okay. So what I would say about inner speaking is that the inner speaking does not have to be in your own voice. One can, and people more or less frequently do speak in somebody else's voice.
Yeah,
And I would say that your rendition made it seem like you were speaking in somebody else's voice. This discussion comports with my impression of your your acting attempt. And,
it's interesting when you're doing like an imitation of a Swedish accent. Is it in your voice? I don't know. That's like
yeah.
you're obviously doing a different voice than your own voice. So like in my head, it could have been me or it could have been, some guy in a pub in Stockholm. And I can't really tell the difference.
Okay. Fair enough.
So were you looking at the words and reading them in your head, or were you making it all up in your head?
The words were definitely on the screen.
Okay.
If I was reading it off while doing it in my head, I'm not really sure. Like the words were there on the screen, but I might have read them and then sort of 3 seconds later said it. I don't know if it was necessarily at the same time.
And were you at all moving your lips or doing any physical movement associated with uttering the words?
It's a
Or,
good question.
or
I
was it
didn't
just,
write it down.
yeah.
It's a good question. I didn't write it down, so I'm going to say no. But I'll trust the words on the page. Is all I can do.
Part of the
Because
reason I am asking is that, in earlier cases, you did say you were sort of muttering to yourself,
yeah, I
like
think I've
moving
had
the
beeps
lips.
of
Yeah.
of both. I don't know. Now that you say it, my memory is I'm getting all these false memories. So I'll trust what's written down.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
we
So
actually got through all six,
we got
gents.
up
I
through
think
all
this is
six,
the
and
first time in the hour.
we are at the hour. So do we want to schedule this again?
Yeah. Are there any beeps in terms of activities that I haven't done that I should do? Or like, are you happy with the variance? Should I go out and do more things? Like, you know what I mean? Is there, I haven't done it on the weekend, weirdly enough. I've never, like, it's always been a weekday and that does sort of bias the sample. So I might do it on the weekend. But then the problem is then you do have to have the meeting quite close to like a Monday or a Tuesday then, right? Because it will fade over time. But I'd be curious to get beeps on the weekend.
So we could go for Monday.